And we are recording with Miss Clare Lopez on Friday, October 20th, 2023 at 4:34 p.m. Eastern Time. Claire's been on here a trillion times before. Please go into the description, find links to all of her writings. You can go follow her on Twitter. As I just said with Mr. Spencer beforehand, I'm banned from Twitter, but go follow them. They're still fighting the good fight. Um, you came on last week and we discussed the attacks on Israel, and really the only thing I'm aware of recently is that they were preparing for, I guess, an invasion or an all-out assault, and they paused due to rain. I think we talked about two carrier strike groups going over there. And Mr. Spencer was just telling me beforehand that uh Biden went over and promised 100 million to Gaza, and then we talked about the tweeting of the picture of Delta Force
Oh, yeah.
assets, which is no part of me thinks that that's an accident. You don't yeah. But Miss Lopez, how are you doing?
Well, I have been busy myself over the last week with all kinds of briefings and interviews and webinars, and keeping in mind that for every one of those that I do, I have to do some preparation too, so I actually know what I'm talking about. So it adds up to a very busy week. But yeah, I'm sure you caught up on the sequence of events with Robert Spencer there. I'll add something to your mention of the two U.S. carrier strike groups. There's the USS Gerald Ford and the USS Dwight Eisenhower that, with their accompanying ships,
Mm-hmm.
moved the aircraft carriers with their accompanying ships moved closer in the Eastern Mediterranean to the Israeli border. But what I just saw, I think, just a bit ago, is that there is also a Marine Expeditionary Force that is apparently steaming through the Red Sea right now. And apparently, over the last just day or so, or less than a day, um, the U.S. Destroyer, the U.S. Navy destroyer by the name of Carney, intercepted and shot down 15 drones and 9 missiles, apparently launched by the Houthis, an Iranian proxy out of Yemen, aimed at Israel.
Oh,
So that's also what our forces are doing over there, not just acting as a deterrent,
yeah.
against some kind of reckless behavior by Hezbollah and or Iran, but intercepting this barrage coming out of Yemen by the Houthis.
Holy crap. Yeah, and I mean, that is a de-escalation though, is to like, right, to make sure those don't hit, because that's going to spiral out of that's going to get very hot very quickly.
Well, I mean, we've seen over, the last several years how the Houthis, supplied with their missiles and drones by Iran, have shot off barrages at both Saudi Arabia, its oil pumping stations and so forth, and also the United Arab Emirates, which was allied with the Saudis in trying to defend their borders against the Houthis, which again, Iranian proxies.
Um, very very odd that just how much backlash there is against any pro-Israel support. It's weird because on one hand, our military is clearly showing they stand with them, but maybe I've just never paid as much close attention now. But I mean, I was reading yesterday about like law students like who are being considered for like jobs being rejected because they had posted the Star of David on their Instagram. I think the most ironic one is there's like a voice actor for some kids show who's Israeli, and she posted like stand with it, like this is terrorism, this is, and she was dropped by some major animations. I should know more. No, maybe I shouldn't, but some major like animation student. She's like a giant name. I don't know who it is, but it's very odd that we're seeing more and more. I mean, I always just point back to this. I was just saying it with Mr. Spencer. Just the irony of calling conservatives Nazis for 4 years under Trump, and then kind of attacking any and all support for Israel. But I guess where it matters, and it's the military, it's the support is there. So maybe I shouldn't get lost in the window
Well,
dressing.
there's also the opposite side of that. You may have also noticed and seen that particularly at some of these elite universities, Ivy League schools,
Oh yeah.
like Harvard, there's been a backlash from the commercial world where, some of these brainwashed robots coming out of these, anti-American, anti-Israel programs have been denied positions, even job offers already made, because they openly on social media or in protests, speaking signs, whatever, sided with the Hamas butchers. And I think that because Hamas, I think this was a mistake. They may not think so, but Hamas was the ones themselves that posted a lot of these horrific videos and photographs of themselves committing atrocities against helpless Jewish people, civilians, and they were putting it up there. Hamas was putting it out there, thinking that they were bragging. Look what we've done, to the Jews. And most of the rest of the world, certainly the civilized world, has been revolted. I mean, just utterly disgusted with what they had put on online and what they were looking at. Horrific atrocities committed against helpless civilians who were targeted simply one and only because they were Jews. So it backfired in a way, not just on Hamas, but on some of these, campus idiots who thought they were, I don't know what they thought they were doing, but out there protesting and demonstrating in support of Hamas's butchery. And to their credit, a number of companies, law firms among them, have rescinded offers of employment already given, took them back. These kids need to learn a lesson, and hopefully they're learning the right lesson from this one.
Well, that's kind of also just like a simple judge of character, not just the character of supporting Hamas, but I mean, just basic brain.
Humanity.
Well, not even that. I'm looking at it as like even a more cold calculating, like if that's my business. I'm just looking at someone who's dumb enough to post it. You brought it up with the a couple months ago when the guy was leaking the documents about the Ukraine
Oh,
war,
right. Yeah,
and
yeah,
you brought up a point about like just the age level and is the
yeah,
brain fully
yeah.
developed to
Right.
they're not even I'm not
Well,
even
no,
getting
yeah,
in.
I mean, compound that, pile on top of that, an Ivy League education, which completely, eradicates the frontal cortex, and all they've got left is the limbic system.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like I'm not even looking at like the moral, philosophical human. I'm just looking at the very
Okay,
like
common sense, which
yeah, I'm
they
just saying
don't
like
have,
shut up and keep
obviously.
it to yourself, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's the people that are just, the most absurd lives, but they keep it buttoned up, they keep it professional, and they keep it in the bedroom. Like they're smart enough to know that. That's what
Well,
I mean.
I would add to that also, though, that the Muslim Brotherhood, and of course, Hamas is the Gaza branch of the original Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood. And here in the United States, there are many front groups of the Muslim Brotherhood. And in particular, they have a presence on campuses,
Mhm.
university campuses. And you'll find groups like Students for Justice in Palestine, which is an offshoot of the American Muslims for Palestine, a Muslim Brotherhood front group, and one of the founding members of the Muslim Brotherhood political umbrella group in the United States called the USCMO, United States Council of Muslim Organizations. So that's one. Um, you've got CAIR, CAIR, Council
Mhm.
American Islamic Relations, which of course is the U.S. branch of Hamas, and one of the over 200 unindicted co-conspirators in the 2008 Holy Land Foundation Hamas terror funding trial. Um, over 200 unindicted co-conspirators, not prosecuted, not followed up on, because then Attorney General Eric Holder decided, no, we're not going to do that. So front groups is what I'm getting at. These front groups that are all over campuses and stirring up, these brainwashed students, who haven't got two gray cells left to rub together by the time they graduate. And they are driven purely by emotion. And I guess they haven't had to do much homework. They really don't know how to do homework, maybe, during their educational experience. And so they don't actually look anything up. And, off they go with their placards and their banners praising Hamas. And they probably have no idea who Hamas actually is, or maybe even what it actually did over there on October the 7th in Israel.
Yeah, I mean, it's been pointed out a million times, so it's not my own original take. I mean, originally pointed out by comedians, but like the countries that these people are like, we stand with, I stand with, or liberate, those are the same. As much as I look at, a lot of the LGBTQ community, I do stand by, like, hey, this is America, and the beautiful part is that you can do shit that I don't agree with. Excuse my French. The countries they like protest for would throw them off a roof. I mean, literally
Yeah.
throw them off a roof,
Yes.
bound
Yes.
behind their hands behind their back,
Yes.
because they must be burned by the holy fire.
Well, it is actually Islamic law. There are
Yeah.
7 of what they call the hudud crimes and punishments, and they are 7 because those 7 come directly out of the Quran. And of course, if you are a faithful Muslim, the Quran is believed to be the literal word of God, of Allah. And so among those 7 hudud crimes and punishments is simply the fact of being gay, of being homosexual. That is a death penalty crime, capital punishment crime under Islamic law. I bet they haven't ever heard of that. They don't know that at all.
Yeah. It's which then makes me think that kind of more and more that it's just they just simply want the reactionary stance. Kind of you're in high
Maybe.
school, you're
Yeah.
going to do the
Yeah.
opposite of what mom and I always bring this up. I went to private Catholic school, middle school, high school. You weren't allowed to have hair over your eyebrows, ears, or neck. So
Well, look at you
naturally,
now.
my hair went right to the edge because don't tell me what to do. I got to college, nobody cared. It's been this
Yeah.
short for 15
And
years.
now you're
But
in a
once they
buzz
told
cut.
once they told me no one cared, I was like, oh, well, what do I actually like? Yeah, I like this. I was doing that because I was 16, 17, 18, and
Mm,
I want to do the opposite of what mom and dad want, right? So that's kind of how I look at it
yeah.
more. But to pull it back, and I do think it's funny because yesterday I texted you and I was like topics for yesterday, or we're talking about, you know, the southern border, who's coming over, Gazan refugees, and I said sleeper cells, and I thought it was funny. You said I don't think they're asleep, I think they're awake now, and that's
Yeah, very
kind of
much
what we're
so.
getting at. So to pivot there,
Mm-hmm.
how does this all tie into the southern border? I mean, aside from the obvious that we've gone over, we don't need to beat a dead horse, but how does this specifically tie into the southern border?
Well, what we're talking about in terms of Russia invading Ukraine, Hamas invading Israel, and the entire world invading the United States of America is the very concept of the sovereign nation state first articulated uh, back at the Treaty of Westphalia that concluded the 30 Years' War in Europe. Might remember in the 1600s, at the end of those horrible decades of slaughter across Europe, kingdoms and principalities all fighting one another, the Treaty of Westphalia was drawn up. And for the first time in that treaty was articulated the concept that the nation state was the key element of the international system, and that it was sovereign within its borders, secure and defensible borders, unless they, the the people, the rulers of such sovereign nation, um, exported warfare or attacking someone else. But otherwise, the sovereign nation state was the element of the anchor of the international system, and it was the idea of the Treaty of Westphalia that this would bring at least some kind of stability, that they would never see a 30 years war in Europe again. Well, I mean, we know that that concept of the sovereign nation state has been violated, umpteen times since the 1600s. But nevertheless, it is the system that we, the United States of America, and many others still value, at least as the ideal, right? And so when an aggressor, like Vladimir Putin's Russia, like an Iranian terror proxy, Islamic Jihad proxy like Hamas, or the entire world, comes waltzing across borders, ours, theirs, anyone's, there's a commonality there, of a system that is in chaos. And unless those who still value that sovereign nation state system of the Treaty of Westphalia, unless we who value that system stand up for it and defend it, then it will collapse completely. Which is why there's a linkage, in my mind anyway, among Ukraine, Israel, and the United States, each of which have borders that have been violated. And yes, America first. Yes, we need to take care of our own border, before we go clamoring for the security of others. But in a sense, I mean, in reality, it's simultaneous. They're all happening at once, the violations of those borders. But they're all bound up in this same concept of the sovereign nation state with defensible borders. And I don't think a lot of people actually get that. And I haven't even heard really many of our, let's say Republican presidential candidates able to explain that or articulate that in any cohesive way on the debate stages or anywhere else. I wish they would, though.
You brought it up last week again, which I thought was an interesting point, of sending over the carrier groups, not just as a deterrence against Arabic nations,
Or
against Israel.
Iran, a Shiite,
Yeah.
and Hezbollah, a Shiite proxy.
Yeah. But also to make sure Israel doesn't do anything.
That's the fear. That's the concern of some people that I've heard. I don't see that playing out right now. I see it the other way around, not just the carrier strike groups, but as I said, the Marine Expeditionary Unit in the Red Sea, that was the one that actually shot down these missiles and drones headed for Israel. But that concern is very real, both inside of Israel, I've heard it, and here too, and I can understand why. But so far, I would say that that U.S. military naval presence has acted in defense of Israel. But on the other hand, of course, some would point out, when is this ground offensive going to get going? What are they waiting for? Are they being held back? We don't really know the answer to that. I'm one that's being hopeful still that the delay in the ground offensive is about, number one, hostages, American as well as so many others. There are 40 countries, by the way, in the world who lost nationals either killed or missing, and missing thought probably to be among the hostages. But delay, I'm hoping that our special forces, Israeli special forces, the tunnel rats, are down there in the tunnels, still on a search and rescue mission for our and everybody else's hostages, Israelis included too. And then secondarily, to urge the population, the Gazan population of northern Gaza, to move south, to leave the furthest northern parts of Gaza, where the invasion, I think, still will be coming. It's going to they have to come in at some point. But those concerns, back to the concerns, is Israel being held back in some way? I don't know. So far, our military presence that's visible, the naval assets, been doing a pretty good job.
Probably been the best outcome that you could want thus far, right? It's
I think so.
and that
Yeah.
it hasn't. I mean, and that's obviously all things considered. Like it hasn't completely turned into a tornado made out of fire.
Not a regional conflict. Not a the conflict is not spread. Um, but again, Israel has not yet launched in full its ground invasion of Gaza, which it absolutely must do, has the right to do, even one could argue has the obligation to do, in defense of its own national security and the lives of its people, to utterly destroy and take out both Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Gaza.
Do you think that all of those areas will be completely removed? Do you think it will just turn into all Israel?
No, I mean, I do think that Israel will, complete its mission of destroying any capability of Hamas and PIJ to ever again threaten, invade, murder Israeli Jewish Israeli citizens, Jewish and otherwise, or any other nationalities that are nearby. I think they must do that, and again, I think they have the obligation to do that. It will take a long time. And also, they intend the IDF intends to do away with as many of the top senior leadership of Hamas and PIJ as they possibly can, even before the full-on ground invasion begins. And they're doing this through directed strikes, aerial bombardment strikes. They've got exceptionally amazing information, intelligence about whereabouts of some of these leadership figures, and quite a number have been taken out already. So I think they're doing that. A number of them probably are sheltering down in the tunnels. And then, of course, at some point, I think the days of the Hamas leadership sheltering in luxury over in Doha, in Qatar, in the Middle East, I think their days are numbered. Khalid Mashal and, of course, Ismail Haniya, among others, but those two in particular.
And this would obviously be wild speculation, but I always like to think what's happening in the shadows, Mossad, CIA, just kind of tracking it. They've got to be, if they haven't already figured out, I mean, the funding for this. I had on after you last week, Joe Teta. I've had him on a lot. Basil Baz, Dale Comstock. They're all in CIA Special Activities Division Ground Branch, and so they're the experts on this stuff. And Joe was saying, he was like, what they were doing, as much it was paragliders and not fighter jets. He's like, make no mistake. He's like a lone wolf terrorist attack is you're running around the subway in London with a knife, or maybe a little more is just suicide bombing in a cafe. It's like this was coordinated and funded,
Very
and
much so.
he was saying like you have to respect it. He was saying Sayeret Matkal is based off of SAS, whose motto is "Who dares wins," and Hamas dared. He was like, but just from a tactical viewpoint, he was like, this wasn't pieced together with bubblegum and duct tape. This
No,
was funded and
very
planned by,
much.
and this is him saying it, by people who know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Where
So
does that thread lead?
where I would take it is the Wall Street Journal article, which up until now I think is the best I've seen out there. There have been many subsequent follow-on articles from it, but that Wall Street Journal article of more than a week ago, maybe 8 or 10 days ago, even soon after the attacks themselves, explained how the international organization, the Iranian dissident organization called Iran International, which is a dissident Iranian organization. It is also a TV channel headquartered in London, in Britain. They somehow got a hold of tens of thousands of emails out of the Iranian foreign ministry. They're not saying how. They use the word, they were purloined. I don't know if the guys talked to you about this or not, but they got a hold of all of these emails somehow. And then they shared them with Jay Solomon, formerly a Wall Street Journal reporter, but in this case, publishing at Semafor, Semafor, and other places subsequently picking up on that and writing articles of their own too. But the gist of it was that these emails out of the Iranian foreign ministry basically told the story of the involvement of the Iranian regime at the very top levels. Now, there's a separate set of information also that has come out. So they're almost partner sets of information. So there's the Iran International set of emails that outlined the Iranian regime's recruitment, penetration, co-option of the top levels of United States national security, Department of State, Department of Defense, all the way going back to 2014. And then a parallel set of revelations about how the top levels of the Iranian regime, meaning the heads of the IRGC, the heads of its subordinate unit, the Quds Force, Ismail Ghani, the Iranian foreign minister himself upon occasion, Hossein Amir Abdullahian, all participated in meetings in Beirut, Lebanon, together with the Secretary General of Hezbollah named Hassan Nasrallah, the top leadership of Hamas out of Gaza, the top leadership of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And these meetings were held as often as on a bi-weekly basis from August all the way to October and the kickoff of the horrific attacks of October 7. So yes, there's no more doubt about any of this. The Iranians directed this, they funded it, they organized it at the very granular, the very tactical level, while, you know, keeping their fingerprints maybe kind of off, but no, not. We know. And it's come out in yeah, as I said, you know, publications in the open source media. They not only penetrated American national security and blinded us to what they were doing and what Hamas was getting ready to do, but they also were intimately involved in the planning of these horrific attacks by Hamas against Israel on October 7.
Which then makes me start to try to look at the entire positioning of forces differently. I mean, obviously you got to kill the guys that did it, Hamas, but you also got to go find who did it, right? Be
The head of the
them.
snake, as it's sometimes called, right?
Correct. Which then, when it's not all adding up, it's like, I think I've used this analogy before. When my little brother went to college, there's this big store in this college town called Piano Liquidators in a college town. And I remember he showed it to me once. He goes, "What do you think about that?" And I was looking at it, and I was like, something doesn't add up. I think they're probably selling drugs. He goes, "Yeah, we all think it's money laundering." And like, it just, he's like, wow. It's funny that everyone concludes. Maybe if you see it in a city, you go, "Yeah, sure." But when you see it in a tiny college, you go, "Piano Liquidators." So that's how
I mean, I like pianos. I don't want them liquidated.
No, for sure. But I look at it, right? Yeah, but I look at it and I go, when it's all there and it's not adding up, that means there's a lot of the icebergs
behind it. Yeah, exactly.
So what are the two strike groups really doing there? What are we really, you know?
Well, I mean, I think they're showing, you know, what they're doing there, because so far
Fair enough.
There
Yeah,
has
fair enough.
not been a second front, a northern front of Israel with Lebanon, with Hezbollah opened up. That has not happened, although there's been a lot of harassment coming out of Lebanon by Hezbollah and also by other militias, including Hamas militias in Lebanon, firing off drones and rockets and so forth, but not the massive, onslaught of a new front in the war. No. So to that extent, okay, maybe so far at least, it looks like the presence of those carriers is having the desired effect in that regard. And obviously, again, the Marine Expeditionary Unit in the Red Sea is doing its job and more, um, you know, intercepting drones and missiles headed for Israel. But it's also symbolic. It's also symbolic, showing the United States government resolve to defend Israel. And of course, huge shipments of ammunition of different calibers and munitions and so forth, weapons already have arrived in Israel. So that is part of the image, the perception that the United States Biden administration. I mean, I'll give credit where credit is due.
Sure.
Is putting out there that we stand with Israel, and we'll continue to stand with Israel. We hope that's what's going to happen, even after the ground war in Gaza begins, which is going to take a lot of casualties. Certainly, we hope on the Hamas and PIJ side, but also on the Israeli side. And we know that Israel is exceptionally careful. The IDF is exceptionally careful to try to avoid civilian casualties, collateral damage. More than any other fighting force on the face of the earth that I've ever heard of, they're careful. But there will be civilian casualties too. And so what we're hoping, and it's the flip side of the concern we talked about earlier, we're hoping that the United States and the world community continues to stand with Israel, even after that very tough offensive, that warfare begins in Gaza and continues, as it probably will have to, for a number of weeks.
Again, on a more like zoomed out level, what is this doing in the general, I guess, armament and armament production of really the world? I mean, you always can look at the pie chart, right? It's America, Russia, China in terms of military expenditures, and then economies. It's always just America, China, maybe India, Germany. From Russia invading Ukraine all the way through now, do you think the entire world is starting to gear up? Hopefully not. The best way, I forget which general or president, but the best way to ensure peace is to prepare for war. It might have been Lao Tzu, I don't know, but or Sun Tzu. What's that doing? Is there any way to even know that? Would that be? I mean, I know a month or two ago there was a bunch of meetings in like the EU about everyone getting on board for a uniform production of calibers. General stuff that I don't think we've really seen since World War II.
Right. Well, I do hope that what it means is more American jobs, good paying American jobs.
Sure.
And hope that is happening. You're right. There's not been a whole lot of talk about it, publicity about it, but I
Which
think
makes me raise more of an eyebrow.
There's no doubt that that's what's going on. They have to.
Yeah, like I forget who said it, but there's one quote. It was like, "There's nothing, the only thing quieter than a church mouse are war preparations."
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know who said it. I don't know. Maybe it's probably I've done this before where I've like quoted someone and it ends up being the guest I'm talking to. I might have just quoted
Not
you.
me. It wasn't me, but
I have no idea. They run together.
Sure.
Yeah, and it does seem like, I mean, it can't go forever where it's the United States providing the munitions. I mean, I know obviously you have all the countries providing munitions and weapons to Ukraine. We're now seeing it with Israel. And then kind of to lastly, where does this leave Taiwan in terms of just general, for like lack of a professional term, in terms of things just popping off.
Well, showing the resolve, the determination of NATO in the face of Russian aggression, which might not have been expected. Might have thought, before February 2022 that NATO would splinter at a Russian onslaught invasion against Ukraine, but they didn't. It turned out to be the opposite. Plus, they added to NATO 2 new members, Sweden and Finland, and also, of course, the resolve shown by the United States in the face of both Ukraine and now the Hamas invasion of Israel. We've got to be pretty sure that the Chinese Communist Party, Xi Jinping, that they are watching. And whereas previous to these both invasions, it might have been thought we have a weak president in the White House, no question about that. Wide open border, maybe doesn't care about borders. But at least when somebody else's border has been violated, this White House has shown resolve. So obviously the Chinese are watching that. I hope they're taking the right lesson from that. And also, in the meantime, the United States and our regional allies in the Far East, meaning, of course, the Quad, India, Japan, US, and Australia, have been working closely together, and other allies of the United States, in particular, places like South Korea and the Philippines and other nearby countries, Malaysia, let's say, Vietnam. There's been a good deal of collaboration and cooperation and meeting of the minds about how to deter. I mean, that's the main thing. Deter first before hostilities could break out. Peace through strength. That's Ronald Reagan. Before China decides to actually invade or blockade or anything else Taiwan. So I would say that at the moment it's China watching perhaps the unexpected firming up of resolve of the United States and our allies.
And then I think it was yesterday or the day before, but B-52s with nuclear tipped cruise missiles went to South Korea, apparently in response to North Korean, I guess, statements more crazy than normal. Do you know anything about that, or what North Korea did?
I don't know if I caught that in the news, but again, a demonstration of our our alertness to begin with of what North Korea is up to, and then, of course, solidarity with our South Korean partners and allies.
Everybody likes to criticize the size of the U.S. military until events from like February of last year till now. Then everyone gets real quiet. I mean, think about that. Think about the forces we have, or what we're providing to Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, Korea. That you can't have your cake and eat it too, man. It's you get real quiet until until it's here, right? ACAB, all cops are bastards until someone breaks into your house, right? You get real quiet. Just always an interesting observation. Always an interesting observation. America's bad, and then something happens, and it's like, America's going to take care of that. Yeah, it's really, yeah.
I'm with you.
But I said we wrap this one up, Miss Lopez.
Okay, time flies by.
Yeah, it was. That was 40 minutes.
Wow.
I told you beforehand. I was like maybe 30, and we just flew right over it.
Okay, all right.
Good to have you back regularly, Miss Lopez.
Thank you.
And by that I mean I'm happy I've made sure to get you back in here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again,
stay tuned, huh?
Yeah, I guess it kind of comes to the whole, all things considered, it's still relatively peaceful.
Unless you live in Ukraine or Israel.
But all things considered, it hasn't completely devolved to
No,
I'm
I
kidding.
mean, that is, to be something to be thankful for, yes,
Yeah,
and we hope that
absolutely.
it can continue that way and that, aggressors may be vanquished utterly.
Yeah, it's the quote, "Do not make peace with evil, destroy it." I like that one. I don't know. I always see that quote in front of a statue of Saint Michael the Archangel. He's like putting a sword through Satan's head. Do not
There
make
we
peace
go.
with evil, destroy it. Yeah. Um. Well, Miss Lopez, thank you guys. Please go in the description. Please go follow Claire on Twitter. And not next week. I have family visiting next week, so for everybody listening, there'll be no shows Wednesday through Sunday, but we will resume the following week.
Right.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Lopez, and you have
Hey,
a
thank
wonderful
you,
weekend.
Tommy.
Yes, ma'am. Guys, thank you for
See you next
watching.
time.
Much love, everybody.